By the summer of 1914, war was not the most dangerous option facing Europe's great powers. Default was. The assassination in Sarajevo did not create instability. It arrived inside a system already stretched to its limit. Europe's countries were tied together financially. Banks in one country had lent money to another. Governments depended on that borrowing to keep running. Trade only worked because credit kept moving between them. Everything depended on money continuing to flow, and that only worked if everyone kept paying what they owed. But by 1914, that was becoming harder. Debt had been building for years, not to grow the economy, but to keep it from slowing down. Countries needed more and more borrowing just to stay stable, and there was a limit to how far that could go. At the time, money was tied to gold. That meant governments couldn't just create more money when they needed it. If losses started, they couldn't easily cover them. So if one country or one major bank failed, the problem wouldn't stay in one place. It would spread. Banks connected to that debt would start failing, and credit would dry up. Trade would slow or stop, and governments would suddenly struggle to borrow at all. That is what default meant. Not one country missing a payment, but a chain reaction that hits everything connected to it. And there was no system strong enough to stop it once it started. That's the situation Europe was in before the war began. So when pressure reached that point, the choice changed. It was no longer just about avoiding war, it was about avoiding a financial collapse. And war did something default could not. It gave governments control over the system. They could stop payments, limit the movement of money, and direct resources where they needed them. They could pause parts of the system that were about to break. War didn't fix the problem, but it slowed the collapse. Instead of everything failing at once, governments could manage what failed and when, and that mattered more than stability at that point. Because stability was already breaking. So the real decision was not peace versus war, it was uncontrolled collapse or controlled damage. And war gave them control. That doesn't mean the war was started just for that reason, but it does mean the financial situation made the system much more fragile and much more likely to break once something triggered it. The assassination didn't create the problem. It pushed a system that was already under pressure, and once things started moving, they moved fast. Now, step back for a second, because this is not just about 1914. The same pattern shows up again and again. A system grows and debt builds over time. Everything works as long as people trust it. But once that trust starts to weaken, problems don't stay small. They spread through everything connected to them. And at that point, the goal changes. It's no longer about keeping things normal. It's about preventing everything from breaking at once. So rules change and governments step in. Control becomes more important than letting the system run freely. Most people don't notice this while it's happening because it doesn't look like a collapse. It looks like governments taking action and decisions being made to fix the situation. But underneath that, the system is being reshaped, and once that process starts, it doesn't go back to the way it was before. It moves forward in a different form, and that's the part that matters. Because that pattern didn't end in 1914.